Thank you, Timothy Yusuf, for the background report. And now to delve into, the Osun election proper, we have seated here in the studio our guest, Victoria Etemesi. She's Director of Voter Education and Publicity, INEC. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Good morning.
Bright and early. I've been watching you throughout the weekend. You've been so, busy on air. It's good to see you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Victor?
All right. Let me also welcome Chris Agiri of the Flag Foundation, Nigeria. Pleasure to have you join us on Good Morning, Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, let's begin this conversation. And I'd like to start with INEC. This is your show. It appears that all is well, but from an insider perspective, we talked about the planning a lot on Friday. Did everything go to plan for you? Because at some point, well, a few glitches here and there, and then that delay, which caused an anxiety late in the night, which stalled a bit the uploading of results. Did everything go to plan for you?
Almost everything went to plan. Opening of polls, so we surmounted the issue of distribution of materials with the reprinting of the ballot papers and the result sheets. We're able to get those materials to the local governments on the eve of election, the midnight preceding the eve of election. And this time around, I think transporters lived to their commitment. They lived up to their commitments. I think there were very few reports about late start. The statistics that we have with regards to opening, for instance, as at from our dashboard, we had 95.5% of polling units opening at 8:30. Okay. So I think that was a good one. And the Honorable Chair has always said that once we get it right with opening, commencing on time, then most likely every other thing should be taken care of. And because once you start late, people are just become apprehensive and suspicion, speculation, and the rest of it. So at least that trust was there, the fact that we started on time. The beavers, again, the week before the election, there was a lot of debate and argument across the media as to the functionality of the beavers, because I think there was this report, an offshoot or fallout of the mock accreditation we had, where some cards were not read, and those were older cards. And so people were just speculating as to the fact that if we failed, they said we failed during the mock accreditation, then it was going to be monumental during the main election. But fortunately, and we had reassured them, we had done the media rounds, that whatever the challenge was had been fixed. And that was actually what that revalidation we had wanted to do, what it was meant to address, to ensure that older registrants are, their biometrics and their data are updated so that it's in sync with the technology that we have. That was addressed, and there was basically very little issue with regards to the functionality of the beavers. The result management, you also saw, IREV was on top of its game. Very few complaints, apart from the stalling, which there was really from our own end, it wasn't an issue, but I think the issue of people also being concerned as to speculating as to what may be happening at the back end. But generally, I think everything went well from our end.
You said almost earlier, and because you said almost.
You mean with the beavers?
Where do you think, you said almost,
with the beavers,
everything almost went well. So where did you fall short?
So during my meeting or my engagement on Saturday, for instance, and we're having the discussion on opening of polls, and the anchor was like, so 94.5, so why the 5.5? I said 94.5 is by our estimation, I think by anybody's estimation, is an excellent score. So if we're now trying to explain the 5.5, that's why I said almost, since you want 100%. But I think we did well.
You think you did well, and there were some little glitches,
Leave the word glitch, please.
No. Some people commended INEC, for the way you uploaded, the results to
A lot of
IRF.
people, actually.
Yeah, a lot of people. INEC, because it's a litmus test for INEC, leading into the 2027 general election. And Beavers was one of the talking points, So what caused the reported delays and glitches that happened? Is the preparation enough? Because the observers, international observers, say there's more work to be done on the Beavers.
Yeah, we agree. This was one election. Now we're facing a nationwide election. So we will not pride ourselves or deceive ourselves that it's time to go to bed. There's a lot more work to do to sustain this tempo. With regards to that stalling, there may not have been an issue because there were polling units where there were issues. A few polling units did not start on time. And there were some polling units also that have huge number of registered voters, and the law says once you're on the queue, you must be attended to. So even if it's 2:30 and you still have 200 people waiting, you must attend to them. So that could be the reason why some polling units, I received videos of voting still going on as at 8 o'clock in a few places, though that could have explained why that happened. And so when you have voting still going on, then definitely you will not have their results until they are done. And if there was an issue with a result, like I also explained on Saturday, that the introduction of the EECA validates the result before you upload it onto the IREV. So if you have an issue with your result, it will not go onto the IREV until it is resolved. So most likely those were results that had issues and needed to be sorted out before they were uploaded. And it was minimal. It wasn't that much. And because we, in the situation room, were looking straight at the dashboard, it was still dropping, even though it slowed, but it didn't stop. It was dropping, but in trickles.
In trickles. Okay, let's bring in Mr. Grace Aguirre into this conversation, as political analyst, and let's get your, your own opinion about an assessment of the Osun election. Is it a pass mark?
Yeah, of course. Okay. It's a pass mark. I see that the tension has dropped.
Because some people said Armageddon was going to happen on Saturday, actually.
I was here on Friday night, Nigeria Today, where there was this fear and apprehension because of the pre-election killings. And then for us as election observers, and of course the Flag Foundation deployed about 50 field observers there. And up to that Friday, people were, still neither here nor there. And so let me first congratulate the winner, and then who has declared no victor, no vanquish. And then the Osun people themselves, that irrespective of what happened pre-election, that they also came out, part of our discussions was voter apathy. And in terms of the aggregation of, total votes cast 4 years ago and now, it's almost in pari passu with what we have. I commend INEC too, and for being up and doing, commend the INEC chair. Just like Anambra election, last November, it was as if heaven was going to fall. I seated on this seat, and it was a hot debate. And I thank God I was vindicated that that election ended without a shot. Nobody ended peacefully. Just as this one, it has ended peacefully. I also commend the president. Of course, I got some information that just according to the Senate president and the Omega rally, he delivered the message from the Mr. President. And 24 hours to that election, there was instruction, as I was told, to the security agencies, allow this election to run its logical conclusion. If you do anything untoward, now you go take your head carrier. And that's what we'll see. When the CNC, when the overall boss allows election to run its logical conclusion. We saw it in Anambra in 2017, Obiano's second election, November 2017, yes. At a point, few days to the election, the security aides were withdrawn, and the president intervened and allowed this election to run, and they ran conclusively like that. The security agencies, I commend them. They are, according to my observers who are in the field, their conduct and behavior was professional, And so this is what we expect elections to be. But I must say that the DSS and the police, according to police report, they recorded about 40 politically motivated killings. 40 politically motivated killings.
In Osun?
In Osun.
Before the election?
Yes, before the election. Why should somebody be killed because of the election? And our election has come and gone. Those people are gone. It shouldn't be so. So our politicians must be put, on notice that this election is not a do or die affair.
What else did your observers see that election results will not tell us?
Yeah, well, according to them, Osun people were determined to make their point, and this they have done. Irrespective of the fears, pre-election issues, on the day of election, they trooped out, and cast their votes. The issues of vote buying is neither here nor there. I sit behind when it comes to those discussions, because I think that in that last Saturday, somebody from who was in Osogbo were telling us in this studio that what they had pre-election vote buying, where you collect half of the money. Then after the election, if they are sure you voted, then and all that. Those things, as long as these are things we will outgrow with time. And
it has sort of begun, because we always talk about voter education.
Oh, yes.
In your opinion, do you think the Osun voters are becoming more aware of the voting rights? Who to vote for, who across parties, irrelevant of party?
Yes.
Do you think they are now aware that personality matters? Because Adeleke, primarily, do you think it is also a reward for his performance in the past 4 years?
Yeah, he has performed fairly well. From what 4 years ago I was there, Osun people were fed up with what they were given, and they were determined to make a change. That's how Adeleke, won. And thank God for INEC and the IREF. You are watching as the result is being uploaded. You are watching from your own situation room if you are winning or you are losing. So when the result is announced, you have nobody to fight. There's no need to fight. You just saw how you won or lost the election. And on Friday, I challenged Osun people. I said, Osun State is strategic to the Yoruba nation. Osun houses the cradle of Yoruba civilization. The Odua, the Ife, and the Odudua. The great OAU University is situated there. So these are people who are enlightened. And why should they allow themselves to be messed up? And of course, the Osun Festival, which is a World Heritage Center, that the whole world comes. Then look at the news coming out that in a local election, contested by brothers of the same mother and father, that 40 people were killed. Honestly, I think we should go further to investigate who was responsible for those killings and what led to it. It ought not to be. But thank God that the election has come and gone, and there is peace. The loser, I congratulated the winner, and peace has returned. So going forward, we have lessons to learn. Mostly to party supporters, there's no need, you are somebody's victory is not worth your blood, according to
So
President
what do you
Jonathan.
make of the swift congratulatory message sent by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to?
Oh, yes, of course. The president sat behind and allowed the election. The president showed leadership. That's a statesmanly approach. And this is what we've always advocated. Allow elections to run is to its logical conclusion. Let it run. Let there be no interference. Of course, you can't rig election without connivance with the security agents. And once they were said to stay clear, I'm happy to see it happen. I saw it, like I said, 2017 in Anambra, and it came to pass against all odds. Our security men, when they want to work, of course, they are equal to the tax. They're equal to the tax. And then the people themselves. I told you, 4 years ago, I saw a woman who came with her daughter and they were trying to offer her something. She said, you perish with your money. He said, is it because of your money that she left her home and I've been here since morning with her daughter to vote? I saw the passion for people. And I said it here last Friday that, look, the highest validation of your citizenship right is your ability to vote during the election. Your ability to make that free choice of who you, making a free choice of who governs you. Of course, yes, and that's why I said, look, you lose nothing by voting, and you lose everything by not voting. If you vote and the candidate won and is not performing, you have every right to confront him or her. Yes, hold him accountable. When you don't vote, what do you do? I mean, it's like 4 years, 2023, where according to INEC, 87.2 million collected their PVCs, and then we have less than 30 million that voted. Where were the other 57 million? Where were they?
All boils down to voter apathy.
Yes, of course. That voter apathy in this right, we need to do more voter education. There should be more sensitization, more civic education for people to understand and come to terms that it is a validation. For me, it's the greatest validation of your citizenship right and privilege to vote a candidate of your choice during the election. If you don't vote, what makes you a citizen? What right do you have to complain? Of course.
And Nigerians can complain. Even while not
that is why
voting.
when in the beer parlors or everywhere, I only allow them to talk. After talking, I say, do you have your voter's card? During the election, someone will say, my vote don't count. Go and vote first before you start talking about your vote counting or not. But you see, the awareness is increasing, but there should be more voter education. And they will be trying the political parties who are the direct benefactors of this. Now, Accord Party, now they go to chop now because they don't win. So where are they in terms of voter education? Political parties are failing. They are failing in terms of sensitizing, mobilizing, galvanizing, educating, and enlightening the people on the need and the importance of them coming out to vote during election.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Now, let me get back to INEC. Now, during the conversation preparatory to the election of Saturday, we talked about your contingency plans. Now, from your experience now, were there actually failings of BVAS machines, for instance, and did your contingency plans work? How many? What caused the failings, and then did your contingency plan work?
Yeah, I had mentioned on Friday that we have 3,763 polling units, but we had 15% reserve, and we had 4,400 plus BVAS machines configured for the election. These were to address eventualities. From our records, from the dashboard on Saturday, there was reports that there were 58 cases, and 44 of those cases were resolved. Only 14 cases were not resolved. But the provision was that in event you can't fix a BVAS, then you just replace it. So at the end of the day, I believe all the issues were taken care of. So contingency plan went as expected.
All right.
It went as expected. And now let's talk about the responsibility of INEC itself and that of the police, the EFCC, and other law enforcement agencies. Where does it begin when it comes to vote buying?
For us,
because at times it happens right just by the side of the polling unit.
Yes, but they're also becoming a bit more sophisticated. I think they are moving away from the polling unit gradually, knowing that all eyes are on them. The EFCC is on ground now on election day. ICPC is there. They are part of the engagements, consultative engagements that the Commission has under the excess structure. And so they have become critical stakeholders. And so voters know that the EFCC and ICPC would be
How sophisticated are they?
So now you really may not see the votes buying at the polling unit. Like he also mentioned, most of the time now the payment or the transaction is executed outside of the polling unit before election day. And so names and details are taken and bank transactions are done. And so you may not know that, except you now go into having discussions with banks to now see, oh, who transferred money to who and for what. But for us, ours will still be, as a commission, will still be to ensure that our messaging targets vote trading. Telling people the consequences of vote trading, because if your vote was not important, then they would not pay you for it. And so when people have that consciousness that they have a voice and their votes could determine the outcome of who comes into power, then they would not fritter it away for whatever sum it is that they are getting. But looking at the dynamics that we saw in Osun, they said they took the money, but they still voted their conscience. So by the time, exactly. So by the time politicians see that they may probably just be throwing their money into the gutters, they may have to come up with another plan. So people are now, because there is also that understanding that there are places or politicians that if they offer you money and you don't accept it, then you are a threat, and so you may be dealt with. So in order to protect yourself, you accept it, and then that is what played out. Because knowing what was in circulation and what we saw before election on Saturday, there was that worry that those with the deepest pockets were going to have their way. But unfortunately, that wasn't what played out.
And that's a message that has been sent to sit-tight politicians who don't want to. Exactly. Now we have one of our guests, joining us here now in the studio is Abubakar Umar Kari, Professor of Political Sociology, University of Abuja. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's good to see you again. And you've been listening to this conversation.
Yes.
Let's get your assessment of the Osun elections, the challenges and also the prospects.
Well, okay, first and foremost, I think it was a huge victory for democracy overall. It was also anticlimactic because the build-up was quite scary. Huge violence all over the place, and there was genuine fear that Osun was going to burn. However, on the election day, mercifully and luckily, fortunately, we saw something quite different. The election held substantially peacefully, apart from pockets of problems here and there, which I believe were isolated. And by general acclaim, I think Nigerians are happy with the outcome of the election. It substantially represents the wishes of the citizens of Osun State, and not necessarily because the governor emerged victorious, but because the actual conduct of the election, the election day happenings, were quite good. By most accounts of monitors, logistical problems were substantially tackled. Election materials reached the voting centers as that when due. If we have to use figures from Kimpak, from Yaga, and so on and so forth, by 8:30 a.m., in over 90% of the polling centers, election materials were there, and even those who came late, by 9:30, election started. Yeah, there are some glitches from beavers, but I think on the whole, they could also be described as isolated. And the most important of all is the fact that coalition, which was also envisaged or feared to provide a huge challenge for INEC, was done fairly well. And by 10 a.m., about 90% of the election results were on IREF, which was actually all pluses. So for me, the elections were anticlimactic, but positively so. We have particularly in the past few months, entertained so many, so much fears that Nigerian democracy has been regressing. And for so many reasons. The obvious anti-democratic tendencies of politicians, lack of internal party democracy within the political parties, the resurgence of the zero-sum politics among politicians and so on. And also, successive elections had recorded low turnout. So even from the point of view of voter turnout, there was a bit of improvement. I have not seen the final figure, but I think it should be between 40 and 45%, which was actually much more than the usual voter turnout. Okay. So yes, there are challenges.
Let's talk politics. Now, at the end of the day, it was a victory of with about more than 60,000 votes.
66, yes.
What, in your opinion, accounts for this margin? Would you say it was a vote for Adeleke himself, a vote against the APC, or was it just the political climate of Osun State?
All of the above. If we use
so long as you mark it as a pass as a lecturer.
So yeah, you have mentioned like 3 points.
We're in class
and I
now.
think,
Yeah.
yes, and I think all of them are valid. It was an affirmation by the Osun State people on their governor. I think many or most of them are happy with him, or have been happy with him, or at least they believe that he will likely do better than his opponents. And I think also the mention could be attributed to the error made by many commentators earlier on that it was a 3-horse race, and it turned out to be a 2-horse race. The ADC,
With a large margin.
yes, the ADC was simply not.
Didn't come to the party.
Yeah, no, it was not in contention. And whether we like it or not, a lot of Nigerians are not exactly happy with the APC government at the center. And also the antics of the APC as a political party, for me, provoked the citizens of Ogun State.
Osun State.
Yes, I mean Osun State. Somehow the APC's method and strategies of electioneering were very, very provocative. They massed all the high-profile politicians, governors, senators, whatever, and some of them made some statements that could be said to be very insulting to the citizens of Osun State. And APC also did not reckon with the political history of Osun State. Osun State has always been towards, particularly in this Fourth Republic, towards anti-establishment. Just recently, in 2023, PDP did not only win the governorship election, but Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whose ancestry can actually be traced there, actually lost Osun State in the presidential election. And so the citizens wouldn't want to be intimidated or cajoled or taken for granted by the APC. And many APC politicians made so many unguarded statements. So much of the citizens were not happy. And also I believe the voters in Osun State must have put the candidates on a scale, rated them, and must have come to the conclusion that Ademola Adeleke was a better option. If not, he's the devil that they know. Yes, and the fact that INEC did very well is also a factor. There was widespread skepticism among Nigerians that INEC has presently constituted, tilted towards APC and so on and so forth. But let us be fair to INEC. It's really acquitted itself. When the chips are down, it didn't toy any line. And I mentioned bringing the election materials on time, decent collation, posting the results on RF and so on. So all these improve transparency and credibility. So I think to a very substantial extent, the wishes of the Osun people prevail. And that was what accounted for the relatively large margin of victory.
The wishes of the people of Osun.
Osun State, yes.
Yes, reflected in how they voted. Now, Mr. Chris, in your opinion, do you think that the election demonstrates that grassroots, political structures are now very important to elections, during elections?
Yes, of course. They will tell you, politicians will say every politics is local. Who are the people that vote? It's the locals. The structures on ground, that is the mediums to mobilize, galvanize the people, are very important.
And that is what Adeleke did?
Yes, so Adeleke is on ground. Let's get it straight. It's widely believed that 12 years ago, no, 8 years ago, that he actually won that election and was rigged out one way or the other. And then he came back 4 years ago. 4 years ago, he wasn't an opposition, and the election came, there were pre-election tensions, but not to the extent. There was no record of anybody killed before the 4 years ago election. And I was there live as a field observer. As a matter of fact, me and Professor Lua Dare were in your studios, the Shobu studios, analyzing the election. And we saw it. The people trooped out and voted for Adeleke. And IREF, the INEC IREF helped matters because you are seeing the results trickling in, and you know that you are losing or you are winning. And Adeleke is on ground. It's on ground. Yes, in terms of performance, it is believed that he has performed fairly well. And so this tells you how sophisticated Osho politics is. The president lost 2023 election at Osho State, irrespective of all the big weights there. Just like Prof was saying, the utterances of some political actors was uncalled for. I frowned even. I took it out on the media. I said, some of these sensational headlines, to what advantage? The world is watching. In a local election, where we'll be faced with a national election less than 6 months away, we saw how the New York marriage election came and go. Even when President Trump was, well, it was his party himself was against the guy that won because he's of the Muslim faith. And with all those utterances.
No, but they don't belong to the same party anyway.
Yes, of course, but they voted for him. That was the local election. We'll watch it come and gone. Then how come our own local election here will now occupy all the headlines, negative headlines, creating
all
fear
right.
and
We
apprehension?
are running out of time. We just have a couple of minutes to go. But let me get back to INEC. Now, observers reported vote trading, of course, including some voters openly displaying their ballots. How does INEC intend to solve this problem, especially with technology now, the bigger influence of technology these days? Does INEC intend to solve this problem?
With regards displaying their ballots?
Yes.
I don't see how technology would fix that. I think it's more of just being...
It's a human problem.
It is a human problem, and I think further sensitization and education probably would address that. And because why would you be displaying your ballot anyway? Maybe to show that the monies you received, you have kept, exactly, you have kept your own part.
But shouldn't that disqualify someone, from voting? Or from the vote counting, if you display your ballot?
So by the time you put it in the ballot box, how do I now differentiate yours from the others?
From the others.
So those are the
it.
issues. Then the security man should be the one who would address that.
Exactly.
The
because they are
presiding
right
officer
there.
cannot arrest you. The security man is there. He should arrest you.
Okay, Professor Kari, we just have like 2 minutes to go now. If you were to strip away, party labels, campaign spending, and political propaganda, what do you think the Osun voters, what kind of message are they sending to the political class with what happened over the weekend?
Yeah, I think the very clear message is that ultimately power resides with the people.
Simple.
So it is, yes, so it is not about being an incumbent. It is not about your large pause. It is not about your ability to marshal arsenal. It is not about rhetorics. No, it is about what the people want. And this is what democracy is all about. And that's why some of us are very, very happy with the outcome of the Osun election. Because democracy is about the wishes of the people. Mm-hmm. Yes. No matter how incredible it may be. Because an American politician once made a statement that was quite unfortunate, that the way the voters of a certain country voted, they were stupid or whatever. But this is what they want. The Osun people say this is what we want. And this is exactly going forward the way we want our election to be. Just reflect the wishes of the people.
Of the people.
Yes. Put all the machinery on the ground. The structures, key institutions should perform their assigned responsibilities. Okay. But in the end, the people's will should prevail.
And increase voter education. Okay, Abubakar Umar Kari, Professor of Political Sociology, University of Abuja. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure having you. And Chris Agiri, DG Flag Foundation of Nigeria, as always. We appreciate your time with us.
Thank you very much.
And our very own Victoria Eta Messi, Director of Voter Education and Publicity, INEC. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
You can go home and rest now. And our second topic is up, and that's the peace accord for the 2027 general election right after this break. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA, and it's now time for our second topic. And ahead of the 2027 general elections, political parties and presidential candidates will come together for the first signing of the National Peace Accord on Tuesday, August 18, 2026.
The Peace Accord is a commitment to conduct the electoral context peacefully and responsibly. And according to what we hear from INEC, the 2026 framework has been strengthened and annotated to give political stakeholders clearer guidance.
Indeed, and we will now delve into the Peace Accord for 2027 election campaign, the expectations and prospects. Now, joining us in the studio is Dr. Emmanuel Nkanta, is the Deputy Director, the Coca Center. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
What does that shit say?
Okay, yeah, say yes to issue-based campaign.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay.
Ahead of the signing of the Peace Accord.
And also here with us in the studio is Fatai Yusuf, Research Manager, the Coca Center. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning and welcome. Good morning to Nigerians.
We have also been joined on this conversation by Honorable Ahmed Sajo, former Commissioner Information and Strategy at Adamawa State and Public Affairs Analyst. I forgot to add FNIPR.
FNIPR,
yes. To have you with us in the studio.
Thank you very much.
And we are ANIPR. Victor and
I've left you.
You've not left me, I'm still here.
I am also FAPRA now.
Wow.
The African Public Relations Association.
That's great. That's great. So we'll begin with you, Mr. Sajo. We're talking about the primary objective of the 18th August, 2026 Peace Accord. How significant is this first outing, and why is it being signed earlier than it used to be before?
I think first let me say a very good morning to Nigerians and to say that peace is imperative if we really want to protect our democracy, because democracy where people lose lives in the contest for leadership is not actually a democracy. It's actually a one-way ticket to blood flow, and that is not that's not good. The significance of signing it on the 18th is that officially by the timetable of INEC, campaigns are supposed to begin at the national level from the 19th of August. So then, and any of the parties could decide to organize a rally as from the 19th of August. And, you know, usually the beginning of crisis is not actually on election day. It starts with the rallies and the movement of campaign teams and the clash between opponents at different levels of the campaign. So I think it's a good thing that the peace accord will be signed before the campaigns begin. And the actors should be told in clear terms that these are the parameters upon which peace will be maintained in the electoral process. Our tragedy as a nation is that we have now equated democracy with elections. Democracy goes beyond just elections. It's a process, and it starts from what is going to start on the 19th, the campaigns. In fact, actually, it started with identification of candidates, uploading of candidates, and then, so it's a whole process. The election itself is just a culmination. And even after the election comes consolidation of, you know, leaderships selected, and then the re-engineering peace within the society, bridging all the broken gaps that had existed because of some toxic rhetorics and all of that. The nature of our campaigns, using religion, using ethnicity, using regionalism, it creates divisiveness within our polity. So you have to heal all of this and come together. Then begins governance. So it's a whole process. And what some of us are advocating for is that the entire process should be peaceful, because nobody's ambition, and this should be made very clear, nobody's ambition is worth the blood of one citizen in this country. We should not encourage people to lose their lives. But I hope in the annotated guidelines and everything, one very key factor, which has always been missing, and that's where we miss our peace architecture, is that people who are responsible should be held accountable. We've just exited an election process in Osun. By official records, about 30 people lost their lives. But up to this minute that I'm talking about, we've not heard of the number of people that have been prosecuted. We have not been arrested for precipitating those violence that led to loss of life. We've not heard of anybody that has been prosecuted. Some people issued very toxic narratives. They're still walking in the streets. You know, anybody that issues certain kind of toxic narrative should be held accountable. So we must begin to construct our peace architecture around holding people accountable for their conduct.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed Sajo. Now, let me get to Dr. Emmanuel Nkanta. Now, the peace accord has been around since 2015. Yet, you know, the last statements he made suggests that it's not anything more than a ceremony, because the things the peace accord seeks to prevent have not been prevented. They continue to happen. What is the guarantee that this year's peace accord signing will be much more than just a ceremony?
Okay, thank you so much, and good morning once again to you and also to Nigerians. Like you mentioned, the peace accord signing, it's actually come a long way historically, and it's more like a child of necessity, of a child of crisis. Because at the point in 2014, based on the conceptualization of the peace accord, down to 2015 and then 2019, 2023, it's been a case of more like an evolution, okay, of probably advancement in terms of, in the 2015, after the signing, we observed that there are one or two things that need to be taken care of, maybe fixed, and that's why we talk about the updated or the revised version, talking about the annotation, for instance. So for us, we also thought that at the point, of course, you agree with me too, that the composition of the members of the National Peace Committee are made of men of credible men and women, okay, of people Nigerians look up to and say, okay, at least you can actually take the lead. It's more like a moral kind of authority, a moral voice. And that is why at the point for the committee is to say, okay, let's go beyond probably the moral aspect of it now, in terms of, okay, don't do this, no talking too much, okay, respect people, it should be issue-based, it should be based on capacity, it should be based on ideology, and based on the intellectual depth of probably a candidate. And so at the point, we have two major weaknesses to the signing of the peace accord. Talking about the Inspector General of Police and the INEC chairman. And the idea is that at the point, if anyone violates of course, the agreement itself, we have the police that tend to be at that level of national, in terms of security, talking about the head of the security agencies in Nigeria, to do the needful. So we observe, just like Honorable mentioned, that at the point, maybe after the signing, there are one or two issues of maybe violence, pockets of violence here and there. And but at the point we have to say, okay, now let us take it a step further. And that takes us back to the question you asked in terms of what will change in the signing of the peace accord that will happen tomorrow and even the second. Just to add that we have two major signing of the peace accord. The first one is before the election, the campaign, like you mentioned, from 19 electionary process, the campaign and all that, to remind candidates that as you sign this peace accord, you must ensure that hate speech is not being spread. You must respect the other person. You must commit yourself to saying that in all of this is not about projecting issues of religion, issues of ethnic, issues of policies, like you said. No one has the monopoly of violence. And so Nigeria belongs to each and every one of us, irrespective of tribe, irrespective of religious affiliation. We are first and foremost human beings before belonging to any of this. So for us is that now, based on the annotation, is tied to the Electoral Act and the Constitution in such a way that if there are violations, unlike the past, maybe you come, you sign, but this time around is that the moment you sign and there are violations, we connect it, at least we link it up to the Electoral Act and the Constitution. In fact, it would have been even more, like Honorable mentioned, yes, the signing for some people may be like a ceremonial, but the commitment alone is enough to hold members accountable. It would have been worse if not for the signing of the peace accord.
You know, we talk about peace accord every 4 years before elections, and you talked about enforcement, you know, making it meaningful. I'd like to bring you, Fatai, you know, Yusuf, into this conversation. As a research manager, you're supposed to research, you know, the outcomes of this peace accord itself. And some analysts have said that it has become sort of a ritual. Every 4 years, people come, sign the peace accord, but in their hearts they know that they are not going to follow the accord itself, because we've seen escalating violence during elections. More than 40 people have been killed in Osun before the election itself. But alhamdulillah, Armageddon didn't happen in Osun. So what message will you send to, you know, to these analysts who, you know, who are pessimistic about the fact that signing the peace accord doesn't really matter to politicians?
Okay, thank you very much. The signing of the peace accord itself, like Doc said, it's a preventive measures so that the laws of Nigeria are respected and followed. We know that Nigerian campaign has moved beyond candidates, so now spokesmen, party supporters, and everybody, they are trying to do everything independently. So the commitment we drive from these political parties and candidates is that you have the moral right to now train your party supporters, your spokesperson, you know, on the guideline, what they should follow in terms of communicating to the people. When you are doing that, you are ensuring that they understand your manifesto, what you are trying to sell to Nigerians. What are the issues that we need to talk about? We don't let us go after our opponents, personal attacks, intimidation. So what are the key messages to pass across? So while doing that, you are telling Nigerians, this is the issue. This is how I want to address it. These are the outcome that we should derive from it. And for analysts that have been saying that the peace accord is just a statement, I'll differ on that, because by engaging the political parties directly, like we used to do, we ensure that they understand what is the commitment they owe Nigerians to do, what are the commitments they owe Nigerians, and to ensure that the messaging, like I said, they follow their own party guidelines, and ensure that the political communications they are giving Nigerians are very clear, issue-based, no intimidation, no violence.
But the argument might be, do the followers actually get the message?
Now that is where the parties themselves are now responsible to ensure that they do a follow-up training, train their supporters,
train or educate
rather their supporters, and by form of educating, you are educating your spokesperson, your campaign managers, to ensure that whatever they are putting out there is commitment. It's a campaign, issue-based campaign that Nigerians want to get. How do you address their problems?
In fact, apart from, like you mentioned, just to add to that, apart from the political candidates and the actors, interfacing with their supporters, at the level of the Kuka Center, the National Peace Committee, we also organize a series of engagements, of training, on conflict resolution, on peace building, on dialogue. Because for us, it's more like pushing for dialogue, and there are early warning signs too.
Who do you train?
Yeah, we train youth, we train women, we train persons with disabilities. So what we do in cases like this, of course, we have off-cycle elections, just like in the Osun, we're in Ekiti and Osun. Now, before then, we don't just go to the states, come together, let's sign the peace accord. There are a series of engagements, with the youth, with women and persons, because we believe so much too that at the grassroots level, all of these persons too need to be engaged. Not just them, we also engage the political actors. And we remind them, yes, it's a process, and we must get it right as Nigerians. There are a series of...
still undergoing that process.
Doesn't seem to agree.
Thank you. Let me get back to Ahmed Sajo. I've told him earlier, we've been signing peace accords since 2015. Yeah. Yet, soon after signing the peace accords, political parties attack each other. Why do you think that signing another peace accord will command better respect?
Let me say certain things.
The role of the committee is merely advisory.
Let me say one or two things that are imperative. First, there is the need for the moral suasion that, look, let's have some voice of reason come into the process. And let me also say that I sincerely admire and respect young people who are passionate about peace in this country. But I think there's a missing link, and they may not know. Two things, if we do not address, we will never exit violence during elections. Number one, we need to begin to disincentivize the entitlements of political office. What these people are campaigning for, what these candidates are gunning for, is not just the positions for the purpose of the responsibilities attached to the positions. Everyone is gunning for the huge entitlements that are attached to these positions.
Which is why they see it as existential.
If we do not disincentivize this huge quantum of entitlements, people will go all out looking for those positions, and they do everything. Secondly, young people like my brothers that are seated there do not even understand that there was a time in the history of this country where political parties had character. There was a time political parties had character. In the Second Republic, I can tell you this, the MPN said their manifesto was agriculture and housing. And all their campaigns revolved around agriculture and housing. The UPN said their manifesto is around education. That any government they form must provide free education and must establish a state university. Those are the state universities that today are about 40-something years. Ambrose Ali, Lagos State University, Adukunle Ajasin University. Those were products of a political party's insistence that this is what is going to happen. PRP said, if you vote for us, any government we control, we will stop cattle tax, Jangali, we will stop poll tax, and we will celebrate May Day. So the first May Day in Nigeria was celebrated in 1980. Then the federal government realized that it was a very popular decision. That's how we got May Day in Nigerian lexicon. So the parties had character. When they go out to campaign, they were campaigning based on their own character.
So what is missing now, sir?
Now,
because the same people out there
now,
in these previous years, they are still the ones currently on ground.
Now, all the campaigns are around candidates. And those candidates are not campaigning because they understand the responsibilities of the office they are coming into. They are campaigning because they see huge entitlement. A member of the National Assembly receives 15 to 20 million naira a month. That's all he looks at. So if you want to block him or you want to oppose him, you are opposing a huge quantum of money coming to him and his family. And so he can go all out. So if we do not address these two issues, if we do not return our political parties to parties with character, not just special purpose vehicles for winning elections, not just revolving doors in the same house that somebody can enter here and come out and enter here and come out, we will not get peace. Because the contest is no longer about ideology, it's not about character, it's not about responsibility, it's not about office, it's about entitlement of leadership. 1. 2, if we do not reduce that entitlement, create less incentive for people to do a do or die thing, we will still continue to go to where we are. But the signing of the accord, very useful, very valuable. At least it reminds us that there is still a moral voice out there that says, stop spilling blood. Because if we do not value the blood of a citizen, then the entire democracy has no value.
Has no value, indeed, it has no value. And Doc, how we have a lot of misinformation out there, especially on the social media and, one-on-one conversations. Like our former guest that left here saying the beer parlor, people decide to just sit down and talk about issues, they don't want to be involved in, they don't want to vote, and they say their vote does not count. So what is the, Kuka Foundation, as part of the Peace Accord, doing to tell people that your vote matters? Your vote is your power. And my second question is, we've seen how religion and ethnicity plays a role during elections, across Nigeria. It just comes to play all of a sudden. How can we detach religion and ethnicity from politics itself?
Right, thank you so much for that. I think talking about what the Kuka Center has been doing in the past and also currently doing, the first thing we try to do is to build trust. Because we get to a point in our country, Nigeria, where citizens feel that their votes don't really count. You go out there, you vote, and then you see the result is not what you probably had actually predicted. I remember in the previous elections, with the whole issues of there may be and the pockets of violence that were predicted. The center had to go all out way to reach out the cluster, because we have a cluster, what we call the EU SDGN cluster, where we have the likes of course, of Yaga, of Electa, of CISLAC, of PLAC. We all work together as a cluster to ensure that as a civil society organization, we go out there to tell Nigerians that, see, your votes really count. Go out, get your PVC, and see how much this can be done. So at the level of the center, we do that. And just to also point out the fact that, like Honorable mentioned, in terms of the character and the manifesto. So for the center, we are also interested in the manifestos of these political parties. What are you doing? What are you coming up? Does it really represent the interests of Nigerians in terms of development? So for instance, we have a project where we interface with politicians, political actors, to say, let's see, what do you really want to have in terms of manifesto? What are your ideologies? What does it really look like? You know, because when we talk about aspect of development, we are looking just beyond the aspect of, okay, infrastructure, what to do, we build hospitals, we build schools and all that. You may have quantities like thousands of schools, but if the quality is not really there, then it doesn't really make actually much difference. So for us at the center, what we're doing,
the quality was there before. I had quality in school.
It was there before, but these same people who enjoyed the quality then, they're still
I'm not giving the quality now.
so just to so that the second question you mentioned. Yeah. So at the level of the center, we're engaging the young, especially the young people, because we say that young people, yes, there's this negative stereotyping of young people. That maybe they are lazy, they are violent, they are not ready. But truly, young people too are ready. They have all the potentials, they have all it takes to make a difference. So the message would be, instead of to be used as a tool, we should be as tool for violence, we should be as instruments for peace building. Now, that's the last question in terms of the religious aspect and the ethnic aspect. Now, for the center, we project this message that as Nigerians, we are first and foremost human beings, even before belonging to any political, religious, social affiliation. And so we tell people out there, be mindful of what you say, the speech, because the hate speech you spread could go a long way in bringing down the country. It can actually burn down this country. And that is not what we need at a point like this. At a time like this, we need to build bridges of peace, bridges of unity, and not walls of division and violence.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nkanta.
Can I just add one little thing? Sorry, sir.
How little?
Because Fatai is itching to say something.
Know, but let me just add one little thing. The first is that as a PR person, I believe that we have not embedded strategic communication in our peace architecture. Strategic communication is key. Whatever you do, you communicate. We don't have to sit down in NTA now and begin to talk about what we are doing for people to understand. The entire peace architecture must be embedded at every point with some level of strategic communication. Secondly, we need to start nation building. Because you're talking about whatever you do, we bring down the nation. Do we accept that we even have a nation? Do the people understand the meaning of nationhood? Do people even feel that they will lose something if this nation collapses? Are we actually communicating? You are a researcher. Are we communicating with people on those platforms? We need to begin to go back to nation building more seriously, and that's my own.
All right. Thank you. Let me get to Fatai. Okay. Because we are talking about the 2027 election and we are talking about peace going into the processes. And I'm wondering, from your research, what are the strongest predictors of electoral violence going into the 2027 election?
Thank you very much. So the strongest prediction, like you mentioned, from the political economic context analysis that we developed, we discovered that the moment a candidate or political party, they are not sticking to their manifesto, what issue that Nigeria wants to, what are the issues Nigerians are facing and how you want to address it. The moment you leave that angle and started all these personal attacks and everything, it's a vehicle that can trigger a lot of things. So that's one of the key issues that we've seen so far. From analytical point of view, we discover that fake news, like we're talking about, misinformation, like we're talking about, every part of this country are spreading it, from the north down to the south. It might be prevalent in some part of the country to another. But the most important thing is, if politicians and political parties are not going back to their manifesto, like Honorable mentioned, each political party should have what they are focused on, that can address the plight of Nigerians. If that is not taken into consideration, the opposite happened, and then it triggers a lot of things. We're talking about ethnic, religious tension, threats to life, violence, and everything. So the moment the candidates and political parties realize that, see, what Nigeria needs to hear right now is how you want to address the problem, not how you are attacking your opponent, not if your opponent go to school or not, that you have the right ideas
Programs
to address their problem. It's a very good.
Social media, everybody is now on the social media. How much, to what extent is the social media an early warning indicator of political conflict?
From what we've been seeing right now, I would say it's not looking good. Why? Because Nigerians are now their own individual reporters. Everybody is online. Everybody is communicating one way or the other. And the moment a fake news spread, it will shock you that it will leave online, it's going physical.
Yes.
And if that is not curtailed or controlled, it will really have a very negative effect on our elections. And I also want to encourage that the security agency should, and it's a must that they try and as much as possible to now start, prosecuting people that are spreading this fake news. We have Data Protection Act, for goodness sake. How effective are Nigerian security enforcing these laws? Because, like I said, everybody is now their individual reporter. Everybody, it will shock you that the way Nigerians now generate AI images for their own narrative, it goes beyond.
And it's your generation doing it all. It's your generation, because I believe...
I can use AI to make your tribal marks disappear.
I'm telling you.
We are at the center.
Yes, what I'm saying is...
We have what we call the ESIO.
What I'm saying is,
the Election Security
when you
Information.
talk to your generation, they say, we didn't know when Nigeria was good.
Yes.
I knew when Nigeria was good. As per my age, I knew when Nigeria was good. When we used to go to school, we're given exercise book, we're given, uniforms, we're given mattress, we're given almost everything for free when we went to school. So their argument is we didn't experience the goodness of this country. Yeah. So how can you retract them, bring them back, to the basis itself that this country can be better?
Sure. I'm someone that for the past 10, 15, 20 years, I'm someone that so much believe that our country, Nigeria, can be better. In fact, at a very early age, we mobilized a young person and say we are patriotic citizens. Let's see what we can do differently. And drawing inspiration also from elders, like you mentioned, from people who have been there, they have done a series of, values really matters. So when we talk about young people at the center, we in as much as we talk about, you have intelligence, you have all of that character, and the values you project, they are key. So you see, for instance, socialization begins in the family. So at that level, a child who grows up in the family that is being socialized properly gets even to the society and becomes better. And
then the community was the family.
Exactly.
Then the community was the family.
But now you see, at a time like this, even a child who's been socialized by the streets becomes a nuisance, becomes a point of violence. So at the level of the center, for us, and what we do as young people is that we call on young people, say, see, you have all the potentials. We have all it takes. Why not channel it positively? For instance, at the center, like the research, like my colleague mentioned, we have what we call the Election Security Information Hub, where we do detailed research. So it's not based on emotion, on feelings and all that. So in all of this and the research, and like you mentioned, we try to counter issues of misinformation, of hate speech through our communications. We have a media a kind of department or team that is also very proactive in ensuring that we also collaborate. Because for the center, it's not something we do alone, and so we believe in collaboration.
You believe in collaboration because we see what's happening in the U.S. with the Democratic Socialists now, younger people who are part of the Democratic Socialists and saying the old school should move and shift because and they are winning primaries actually. Dr. Sajo, do you think that can happen in this country with the not too young to run bill and all that? Yes.
No. It's not about the bill.
Okay.
Actually, it's still about strategic communication. Are we communicating with younger people? Because younger people belong to a milieu, the new media, social media and others are creating a hope for us to reach out to the younger people. Are we reaching out to them with messages that will engineer or engender what we want to achieve. He asks a very fundamental question, and I think we should all sit down and look at it very critically. What are the triggers of electoral violence? The triggers, if you really want to nip the process in the bud, you need to identify the triggers. And those triggers must be addressed squarely. One of the triggers of electoral violence is institutional carelessness. When institutions that are supposed to ensure peace, look the other way around, when somebody in authority is violating the peace.
Because institutions are weak.
Weak.
Stronger individuals, weaker institutions.
That's one. That's a trigger. The other trigger is that we've come to accept that hunger and poverty can be weaponized as a political instrument. And for as long as we accept that, that is also a trigger for electoral violence. Another trigger is our social differences, social inequalities that are widening every day. Our moral voice should not just stop at saying, let's have peace. We should also begin to look people that are responsible for bridging that gap in the face and tell them, look, this gap is getting wider. And for as long as people are hopeless within a system, you cannot guide them to do what you want. And then there are other triggers. One of them is, like I said, our parties lack character, and then our campaigns have no limits.
Okay.
People can go onto the soapbox, say anything, and come down and be safe. We must begin to control the narratives on the soapbox, not just by training, but by holding people accountable when they make statements that are capable of breaching peace. If you mount the soapbox and you make a nasty statement, as you come down, the security men that are there should hold you responsible. Tomorrow, nobody will say it again.
We have to pause you because
all right. So that we'll just take a couple of messages from our
just in
guests.
30 seconds, please.
Now, this one is from Alaji Garko in Karusite. It says, good morning, presenters and your guests. Peace accord before election in Nigeria is a welcome development to prevent violence and anarchy before, during, and after the election. However, if politicians and their supporters that violate the peace accord are not sanctioned, the purpose of the peace accord is defeated. All right, and this second one and last from me is from Hyacinth Nwefuru. He said, peace accord for 2027 election campaign. Yes, every 4 years it is signed to no avail. But so it will continue if, one, the obnoxious constitutional immunity of the state governor is not abrogated, and two, defection to the ruling party is not stopped from being a silent immunity for corrupt politicians.
So, Doc, on a final note now, going into 2027 election, where do you see this peace, where will this peace accord take us? Who will be held accountable if after signing this effect, their followers now go violent, kill people, and all sort of atrocities are committed, all in the name of politics, in 10 seconds?
Okay, thank you so much for that. So we have two major signs of the peace accord. The first one is before the campaign, to say that no hate speech, ensure that you commit yourself to issue-based campaign. And then the second one is to commit them to accepting the results. And if you are not satisfied, of course, in the case of that, of course, we follow use illegal redress to go to courts instead of bringing forth mayhem of violence. So for us in 2027 and for the National Peace Committee is that we've gone beyond just signing the peace accord, but ensuring that this peace accord itself is translated into concrete terms to ensure that anyone who violates the peace accord is also held accountable, and that Nigerians work together to ensure that we build a more peaceful and humane society.
Indeed, Dr. Emmanuel Nkanta, Deputy Director of the Kuka Center. Thank you so much for joining. I didn't have time to ask about the young electorate.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you
and Fatah Yusuf, Research Manager at the Kuka Center, welcome. And thank you so much, and we welcome your contributions to the conversation.
Thank you
indeed.
very
And as always, our regular here in the studio, you know, Honorable Ahmed Sajo, former Commissioner Information Strategy at Adamawa State, and Public Affairs Analyst. We always appreciate your input on issues we discuss on Good Morning Nigeria.
I just hope they will include strategic communication in the peace architecture.
It's okay. And on
Thank
that
you very
note,
much.
that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. You join us again tomorrow for another interesting topic as politics is in the pipeline. I am Jumwe Yusuf.
And I'm Victor, so have a great day.